inspiration level when you realize the sun's not setting, the sun is rising, and we haven't even got started yet. Then you end up with inspiration for your home, for your kids, for your family, and for your future.
Into compassion, jump into truth, jump into love, jump into reconciliation, jump into justice, and let no wall keep you from being changed by God. Preach.
Hey Bayside, happy Easter. Join in and worship with us. When I thought I couldn't make it, your love was always waiting. You saw my situation and came to rescue me. 'Cause you waited for me when I lost my way. I was found by grace. Now I'm breathing new life as you fill my lungs with heaven. You're the reason I'm alive.
tell the sun to rise? Who can show the dawn his place? I could spend 1,000 years and only start to know your ways. Who can measure what you're worth? Who can fathom what you've done? I could write 1,000 songs and never capture heaven's love. So come on, wherever you're at, let's lift this together. And oh, praise the Lord, the Holy One. And oh, praise the King of perfect love. 1,000 times my soul will sing hallelujah. Yet I will sing 1,000 more. Who can heal the hardest heart? Who can hear the softest prayer? I could run 1,000 miles and still I know you'd find me there. You'd find me there. Lift your voice. Oh, praise the Lord, the Holy One. And oh, praise the King of perfect love. 1,000 times my soul will sing hallelujah. Yet I will sing 1,000 more. 1,000 more. Hey! Yet I will sing 1,000 more. I could climb the highest heights, or I could fall to lonely states. I could live 1,000 lives and never see the end of grace. And oh, praise the Lord, the Holy One. And oh, praise the King of perfect love. 1,000 times my will sing 1,000 more. 1,000 more.
Friends, that song strikes the very chord of what it means to be a Christian. That even if we ran 1,000 miles from God, or if we sang 1,000 worship songs to Him, even if we fell down to the lowliest of places, or even if we lived 1,000 lifetimes, we would never see the end of grace that flows from a God of perfect, yes, perfect love. Can you just throw some worship emojis down in the chat right now? Come on, that is the greatest news you are ever going to hear. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us that it's the love of God that actually compels us forward. It's the love of God that compels us to action and compels us to acts of compassion. For more on that, we want you to hear from your campus pastor.
Thanks, Brandon, and hey, Bayside Granite Bay, it's Andrew here. I'm one of the pastors in this church, and it's great to see you. We have just been amazed at what God has been doing through our online presence. We used to be all on site, and we thought going online, we might lose some people. You know what God has done? He has multiplied our impact, and we saw over 100,000 people last weekend connect to our services. So we're so excited that you're joining us today. I want to speak to two groups of people. Group number one, you're brand new to Bayside. You don't even know how you got here. Maybe you were Googling Baywatch and you got Bayside. We want to say hi to you, and we want you to connect to us. And if you're thinking, is this church more than a website? Yes, we are. And maybe you're wondering what the next step is. Why not just text NEXT to 56316. We want to connect with you. And then for our Bayside Court, thank you for joining us. And we want to say, you guys are killing it in the whole world of compassion. I want to tell you about two things that are happening at this moment. Our frontline medical workers, they've been needing masks, and we've had a whole bunch of Baysiders transform their kitchens and living rooms into factories producing thousands of masks. And then we've had a bunch of people said, we want to build the shields. And because of your generosity, last weekend, we were able to send $10,000 to some Bayside people who have started manufacturing masks for our frontline medical workers. If you want to get involved in that, just follow this and do what you need to do. And finally, I want to say this. All of what is happening is because of your generosity. And the church down through the ages, in moments like this, it hasn't contracted and got small and stingy. Actually, you're going to read this in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 about the Macedonians who were in extreme poverty, but actually it welled up to incredible generosity. That's what the church does. That's what you're doing. And I'm going to invite you, even at this moment, take out your cell phone and just text the word GIVE to 56316 and join in with generosity as part of your worship. At Bayside, we don't have many traditions, but one we definitely have is that every Easter we have kids reading the scriptures about the Easter story. But before we jump to them, I want to pray for you today. Father, I want to thank you that you are with us even in this difficult time. And there's no better reminder of that than Easter itself, when you died for us and you rose for us, and you promised that your Holy Spirit would be with us and that you would never leave us and forsake us. God, I pray for every single person watching me and listening to me now, that they would know that you are with them, that your presence is in their home and in their lives. And as we hear these readings, may our hearts be filled with faith.
Happy Easter, everyone! Please join us as we read the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, verses 1 through 8. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them.
In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee? The Son of Man must be delivered over the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be risen." Then they remembered his words.
Happy Easter!
I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. And you came along and put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not
Hey friends, it's Pastor Ray, and on behalf of all of our pastors to all of our campuses, which means Granite Bay, Folsom, Midtown, Adventure, Davis, Blue Oaks, Santa Rosa, Elk Grove, Newport Beach, and Folsom Prison, and now we actually have an online campus that has exploded, which is larger than any of our campuses. The first one I want to say is this: Happy Easter. We are really glad you've joined us. And I want to say two things, and then we're going to dive into a message from your campus pastor. And the two things I want to say is this on Easter. Number one is, I just really want to say, on behalf of everybody, thank you. Thank you. The number one question we get is, what are we doing to help our community in crisis? And I want to say thank you. For example, I want to say thank you to our Midtown campus. They literally have fed 6,000 homeless folks and have a shower system where 100 people a day are actually getting hot showers, which keeps everybody safe. Thank you to everybody across all campuses. The medical community has needed masks. You all have set up shops in your homes, and to date, you've made over 4,000 masks just to keep people safe. Way to go. Matter of fact, just happened. We have a church in Folsom Prison on the men and women's side. I don't know if you've heard this. They have let the women's side bring in 10 sewing machines, and Folsom women in the Folsom prison are actually making masks on those sewing machines to keep health workers safe. Amazing. There are blood drives on every campus, and kids have been hurting, and kids from low-income schools are still going to their schools to get breakfast and lunch. And so near several of our churches made Easter baskets for those kids. And I just want to say, Bayside, way to step it up, way to go. Our job is to bring the love of Christ to the people that are hurting and most vulnerable right now. Well done. The second thing I want to say is this: none of us have ever faced anything like this. I mean, this is a crazy Easter. I'm in my living room, you're in your living room, your car, or wherever you are, and it's almost like the whole world's shaken up. And most people are shaking on the inside because the whole world's shaking in every single way. And I want to give you what our next message series is going to be. None of us have faced anything like this in a generation, which means we are about to unleash, starting next week, the most important series we have ever done. And the name of that series is this: How do you stand strong in a shaken world? How do you find strength during shaken times? And maybe the best way, and hey, if you got these at home, play along with me. The best way to illustrate that, here it is: Coke Zero. You're going, what in the world do you mean by that? Here's the deal. I bought these at the same place. They're identical cans, but here's the deal. You stress this one, you squeeze this one, you put pressure on this one, and nothing happens. It holds up. You stress this one, you put bad circumstance on this one, you crush this one, and it literally is destroyed. This next season is going to develop you, or it will destroy you. It will develop your emotions, or it will destroy your emotions. It will develop your family and deepen your family, or it will destroy your family. Don't miss the next 3 weeks. We are going to walk through 3 things that if you will build them into your life and build them into your family and build these into your kids, you will actually have strength that you never, and when you have strength, you have a future. So join us for the next 3 weeks. On behalf of everybody, happy Easter, everybody. Now let's get on to the message on your campus.
What will define you? You see, in all of our lives comes a moment that after that moment's over, we're changed. After that moment's over, we remember where we were, who we were with, and how we act. I'm Pastor Kurt from Granite Bay, and I just want to take a minute today to look at this idea of defining moments. You know, some defining moments, they're positive, they're good, they're great. They might be personal little moments that only you know about, but they're victories. Do you remember, for instance, the very first crush you had? That first girl, that first guy, or the first date you went on, or that moment when you first asked her to spend the rest of her life with you, or the first few moments after your vows. Or here's one, this is a big one. The defining moment when they put your first child in your hands and the doctor says, all right, take that human home, you're responsible, go raise it. You see, each and every one of us has these moments that define our whole life. Do you remember your driver's license? Remember the day they said you can legally drive? Here's a big one. Do you remember the day your last child got their driver's license? Oh my gosh, that's a relief, isn't it? You go, thank goodness that stressful period is over. How about the day you passed that class no one said you could pass, or the day you graduated from that program? Cameron Crowe, I'm talking to you right now. It's Pastor Kurt. I want to talk directly to you. You're graduating this spring, and I'll tell you what, we're not going to diminish it or dismiss it. We're going to celebrate it. We may not be able to gather, man, but I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of every single graduate from 2020. This is your defining moment, and we're not going to let it go by. You know, we're not done with good defining moments. We're not done with them. But we can't be in denial about those defining moments that are less than personal. They're even global. Those defining moments that are challenging, that are hard, that are difficult. This week, we mourned the anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. I found myself thinking about those first few hours after 9/11. I found myself remembering the students running from Columbine High School. And I found myself thinking about COVID-19, what it means to us as a culture, as a country. How will this become a defining moment for us? Have you had your personal COVID-19 panic moment yet? Where all the bad news mounted up on top of each other to the point you're running scenarios in your head and you just got paralyzed? It happened to me this week. My wife, she looked at me and she said, I need you to go to the store and I need you to get some more fabric. You see, she's making these masks for first responders and she's all out of fabric. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll wash my hands. I put my gloves on, put my mask on, got in my car, sprayed the steering wheel, even though I'm the only one that's been driving this car for multiple months. And I took the car to the store and they were social distancing in the store and only letting a few people in. But once I got in that store, I just got the heebie-jeebies. I got the willies. I got germ phobia all over me. I grabbed that fabric as fast as I could and I got out to the car and then my wife texted me again and said, go back in. Kurt, we need the Disney princess fabric. I forgot to tell you, the Disney princess. See, she was making pediatric masks that afternoon. I was paralyzed. I didn't want to bring a germ home and I didn't want to go back into the germs. And I sat in the Walmart parking lot for 15 minutes doing nothing. And then I said a prayer. And then I calmed down and I did what I had to do in the way that I had to do it. What's going to become of you and I? How are you and I going to do what we have to do in the way that we have to do it in this defining moment of COVID-19? I think it is so sovereign that we are actually doing Easter in the middle of this and doing Easter like we've never done Easter before. Right there as you're listening to me, I want to ask you to rethink Easter. You see, what they learned then is what God has to teach us right now. If we're going to come out of this thing stronger, we have to go back to the ultimate defining moment of Easter and see it for what it really was. Our problem is we want to sanitize Easter. We want to make it into a myth. We want to make it into a party that's superficial. And this year, we can't do that. You see, that first Easter was dirty and chaotic and dangerous and scary and transformative. Some of you listening right now, and you've been to every church service your whole life on Easter, and your faith has gone a little bit cynical and a little bit cold. This is your chance. You know who I'm talking about. This is your chance to stop being religious. Start having Christianity as the essential part of your life, not just a part of your resume. This is renewal time for you. This is a defining moment for where you can reconnect to God. And some of you, you're listening to me, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You have no idea. You've never really engaged on this topic, and it's okay. But I want to ask you, what if what happened to them happened to you? What do I mean, what happened to them? Let's go ahead and read the story. It's Luke 24, 1 through 8. Those disciples, those first disciples, they're isolated and afraid. They're shut in and shut down just like we are right now, except for two of them. Mary and Martha decide that they're going to complete the burial process of Jesus. And this is how we learn of this definitive moment. Luke, the physician and historian, records it this way, simple words. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and they went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of Jesus. While they're wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He is risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. In that moment where they realized that Christ had defeated death itself, something so profound, so deep happened in them that they went from fear to faith. They went from cowering to courage. They were changed and they went on to change the world. I'll ask it again. Could what happened to them happen to you? You see, this is the most unique Easter of our life. Maybe, just maybe, if the pageantry is stripped away, we can rediscover the purpose of Easter. Maybe, just maybe, if the trappings are all taken away, we can find the transformation that they found. We're going to talk about 4 things that were changed in them in that moment. 4 different things, and I want you to get your notes out. Get the app out. Take a note on this. This is what's going to make you strong in this defining moment, because God is the same God, and the 4 things that happened to them, he wants them to happen to you. The first one is the most important one. The first one, none of the rest of them can happen unless you get the first one. Right where you are, right there, you personally, I want you to write this in. You see, the first one is this: resurrection leads to rejoicing. This is astonishing if you really understand what's going on here. It says in Luke 24:52 that they worshiped him. They worshiped him. These were Jewish people that were taught never to worship anything but the one true God. Why did they worship him? Because they realized he was God. They realized that God himself had taken an interest in them, had defeated death, and not just defeated death, was living and with them. What could happen if you and I believe that death really is dead? Here's what's amazing to me. Their circumstances had not changed. There was no press conference where they said, hey, the disciples are free to go. We love them now. They're great. We're not going to arrest them. Their circumstances weren't changed at all. Listen to this. They were still outnumbered and outlaws. They were still poor and powerless. They were still misunderstood and misplaced. There was no good news in the paper or on their feed in their phone. Then what had changed? They knew God was with them. They knew the power and strength of God himself was with them. Their obstacles had not changed, but their outlook had. I got this question for you, and I just got to ask it. Is it true? Could it have really happened? You see, it's not just preaching. I know what you're thinking out there going, oh, come on, Kurt, you guys just like to preach. You preachers like to preach about this. What if God really does love us that much? What if you were carefully knit by your God, and that even in your flaws and failures, he has not given up on you? A lot of times when people listen to religious preaching, the preaching is all about me more committed to God. This story is about the God who defeated death. It's about God being more committed to you. What would happen if we believed it? Did these disciples really believe it? Is it just a myth? Well, here's the one argument I'll make for you on this. They all died believing that Jesus had risen from the grave. In fact, 11 of the 12 original apostles were martyrs. We do not die for a lie, my friend. They believed it and they changed the world. The moment they realized that Christ had risen, something else happened. The moment they accept the first premise, the moment they went, the tomb is empty, he's alive, he really is God, the natural reaction was to start loving other people. Couldn't our world use more of that now? What if we really believed God loved us? You know what we do? We would start loving other people. Number 2, write it in. Compassion becomes contagious in these early believers. It says they sold their property. It's the same reporter, Luke. It's 2:45 in Acts, and he reports that they sold their property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. When we're freed from selfishness, we start to become significant. You want your life to matter? It's not dependent on our economy, my friend. It's not dependent on our politics. Your life begins to matter when you lose your life and start loving others. They gave to anyone. What does it mean that they gave to anyone? Well, they gave to Republicans and Democrats, independents, libertarians, librarians, octogenarians, egalitarians, complementarians, and even utilitarians. They all got something from the early church. Couldn't our world use some people that believe God loves us so much that he died, conquered death, and then we started actually loving each other? Isn't it a little bit sad to you that it takes a pandemic for all of us to start smiling again at each other and asking each other, how are you doing? My family, man, we're all so busy, but we've started a Saturday night phone call in, just from the different states we live in, just to love on each other. My wife, she's making these masks. I told you about it earlier, and way to go. Vicky Fu, way to go. And Dr. Tanya, man, way to go, way to go, way to go. They've got all these things organized. I want to tell you, the most happy people right now are not those criticizing. It's those that are creating something to give. And this is what happens. Here's the next one to fall. Once you actually believe in the joy of the resurrection, you start loving each other with that joy. And once you start loving each other with that joy and unleashing that compassion, and that compassion becomes contagious, then the next thing happens. Here it is. Once we experience the resurrection, we start spreading compassion, and then barriers are broken. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Ephraim, my pastor Ephraim, I know you're checking out this sermon. I see you out there. Ephraim talked about the mission of the church. It was a beautiful sermon. Look it up, 2 weeks ago. And he talked about how we have to be a reconciling, justice-oriented, breaking down the walls of injustice and racial barriers, economic barriers, and the divides that have caused America to be so strident lately. And I couldn't amen him more. But I want to add a layer to that. You see, we can't just worry about the big picture justice. We've got to actually go after the micro injustices of our own lives. We can't have a unified nation with a divided living room. Here's my question. How are you doing on loving the people you live with? How are you doing on breaking down the barriers of the people in your neighborhood and your street? Look at this passage. It says here, and the Lord added to their number daily. Now, we take that for granted, but what does that mean? See, there was Jewish Jews, Jerusalem Jews, and then there was Greek Jews, and the Jewish Jews didn't like the Greek Jews, and not at all. No, they were totally divided. And the Jewish Jews and the Greek Jews, they also didn't like the Samaritans. They both hated the Samaritans, and the Jewish Jews and the Greek Jews didn't like the Samaritans, but all three of them didn't like the Greeks. And the Jewish Jews and the Greek Jews and the Samaritans and the Greeks all hated the Romans. Everyone hated the Romans. They were so divided, and yet it says just in a few short chapters, guess what? Jewish Jews found Christ, and Greek Jews found Christ, and Samaritans found Christ, and Greeks found Christ, and even a Roman centurion finds Christ, and the first church is this amalgamation of what could have never been before. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do. The second this thing is over with, I know what I'm going to do. The second they say we've gone through all the phases, you're free to go out, you're free to share, you're free to, fist bump again. As soon as that happens, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make cookies. That's right. I'm making chocolate chip cookies because I want revival. See, I believe we're 3 batches of chocolate chip cookies away from absolute unity and revival in our world. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to Costco. I don't like Costco. Lines are too long, but I'm gonna get a tube of cookie dough, this big, chocolate chip cookie dough. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this cookie dough home and I'm gonna light up that metal box in my kitchen. Men, I want you to listen to me. I'm gonna give you a little cooking lesson here. It's not the small metal box, that's the microwave. It's the big metal box. And I'm gonna put it in there at 325 degrees. And I'm gonna put it in there for 9 minutes, not 8. That's too gooey. 10 or 11, that is from Satan. 9 minutes, my friend. When I take that batch out, I'm gonna be tempted by Satan right then. You will be too. To eat all those cookies myself. You can have one, sir. One. The broken one in the corner. Don't break it on purpose. You can have one. Then I want you to take all those cookies and I'll put them on a plate, and I want you to make the most courageous journey you've ever taken. I want you to walk the 30 yards from your front door to your neighbor's front door, or the 3 yards from your apartment to your neighbor's apartment. And I want you to knock on that door and say, here, I made cookies for you, and then just leave. Don't say anything. And then a week later, make some more cookies. If the man of the house answered the door, the family won't know there was ever cookies because he'll just eat them all. So you got to make another batch. And then a third batch, and maybe a fourth. And at one point, he'll look at you, sir, and he'll say, why are you doing this? And then don't say anything. Don't say something like, I don't want to shove my religion down your throat, so I'm not going to tell you why I love you. And he'll beg you. He'll plead with you. Or he'll call you at 10 p.m. and say, my marriage is in trouble. My kid doesn't understand me. And at some point, all you have to do is say to him, I've got so much cookie dough. I got too much for me, and I'm sharing it with you. Just like the love of God. I've got too much for me to keep myself. I said this illustration at a church in Elk Grove once, and about 3 weeks later, I go to this church, and this guy comes up to me and goes, 30 of my neighbors are here, Pastor Kurt, 30 of my neighbors. He said, I got them all to come to church by using brownies. Is it okay to use brownies instead of chocolate chips? My friend, let me tell you, brownies, totally good, on fire. But chocolate chips, that's the celestial standard right there. Go break down some barriers. Go find someone to love. At the beginning of this message, I told you about a few defining moments in my life, about my first love, about my driver's license. But I deliberately didn't tell you about the most important defining moment in my life. A moment so important that I know that no matter what happens in COVID-19, this moment will remain the most defining moment in my life. It's the moment where I experienced what these disciples experienced. It's the moment I came to Christ. When I was 16, I went into my sister's bedroom one night to steal her album, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. I don't know why I wanted to steal it. She said, don't touch my stuff. And well, for a younger brother, that's called to touch her stuff. So I went in there to steal it, and I took that album with my right hand, and right next to her albums was this gold Bible, today's modern English version, the Good News, it said. I don't know why, but I grabbed that Bible. I took both of them up to my room, and the Bible just naturally fell open to the book of Matthew. I read the words of Jesus for the first time. I mean, I fell in love with these words. Sure, it was just a myth. It was just a story. People had changed it over and over. That's what I believed. But there was some power in what he was saying about the meek shall inherit the earth and how he treated the lepers. When he healed the leper, that's when I went, maybe just maybe he could heal me. No, it's just a myth. It's just a myth, I said to myself. But I kept reading. And I got to the part where he died and he suffered and he called out from the cross, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. And it is finished. And I couldn't get those phrases out of my mind. Week after week, every night, I would read the book of Matthew over and over again. One night I read Matthew chapter 7, verse 7, where Jesus said, ask and I'll answer. Seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And I did. I don't know why. I still kind of believed it was a myth, but I thought, I'm going to try this. I thought of the two most difficult questions I could ask God. I closed my eyes. I said, God, why won't Debbie Wildermuth go out with me? Oh, you laugh about that. That's a deep theological question for a 16-year-old. And then I asked, why do my mother and I fight so much? Went to bed that night, went to sleep, got up the next morning, just like a 16-year-old. I completely forgot about the prayer the night before. I went to high school, and as I was walking down the hallway of my high school, between two periods, God answered my prayer. People always ask, was it an audible voice? And I say, no, it was louder than that. It was in my bone marrow. It was in my DNA. It wasn't even really words. It was just an immediate understanding of what God wanted to say to me. I could put it into words easily. It was like God said, Kurt, the answer to both of your prayers are the same exact answer. You are not going out with that girl, and you fight with your mother so much because, Kurt, you are a profoundly selfish person. You're a sinner. Even now as I say it, it seems like God was being harsh with me, but it was the most benevolent, kind, grace-filled thing anyone had ever said to me. It was like God said, I see you in all your flaws and all your brokenness and all your fears and all your sin, and yet I know you and I love you. That moment defined me forever. That moment of grace and love and acceptance changed me that day and has been changing me every day since then. And you, my friend, can find it too. One last thing, one last fill-in. When you see the resurrection and your heart begins to soften with compassion and barriers begin to fall, then you become ready for the last and most important one. Forgiveness is found. I found forgiveness that day. I found that the Christ that forgave them all the way back that first Easter was still forgiving people today. And that what Jesus did on the cross applied to my life and my failures too. Why were they so profoundly changed? Because they were so profoundly forgiven. And you can be forgiven too. If we come out of this and lose so many things, but gain the forgiveness of God, we will be wealthy beyond means. Renew your heart. Renew your life by finding forgiveness in Christ. It says that they accepted the message. What does that mean, they accepted the message? They accepted his forgiveness. They accepted the message. What does that mean? They began to trust him. You see, God had a dilemma. Here's the dilemma. On one hand, he's perfectly just. And on the other, he's absolutely loving. What do you do when you're a God who must punish every sin? Because if you let even one sin go by, you are an unjust God. And yet, you love your creation in all their flaws and sin. You still love them. What do you do if you're perfectly just and perfectly loving? You come to earth and you die to satisfy that justice and to express that love. Are you ready? Is this your moment to become a Christian, a real follower? Some of you have been far from Christ for a long time and you need to renew that commitment and find that forgiveness. This is your Easter. With all the pageantry stripped aside, you can rediscover the real purpose of your life. And some of you, this whole season is going to result in you learning that God is real and alive and wants to forgive you. How do you do that? It's really simple. It's as simple as A, B, and C. A, accept his forgiveness. B, believe and have faith in him, trust him. And C, commit to following him. A, B, C. I'm going to pray a prayer right now. Now I'm going to pray a prayer out loud and you're going to pray it right where you're at, right sitting there in your heart of hearts, and recommit or commit your life to Christ. It's a prayer as simple as ABC. Right now, just close your eyes and pray this prayer with me. God, I accept your gift of forgiveness. Thank you for sending Jesus. Thank you that he died for my sins. God, I believe. I put my faith in you. God, I commit to follow you every day and in every way. I want to tell you that if you just prayed that prayer, right in the chat section, there's a little button that's going to come up called I Raise My Hand. At Bayside, we invite people to follow Christ every single weekend, and we usually have them raise their hands when they do. Now, you can actually push the I Raise My Hand button, and it'll help us connect to that decision you just made, and we're going to help you take next steps. Some of you are watching on Apple TV or Roku or YouTube, and you're saying, Kurt, how do I do it? Don't worry, we got you covered too. All you have to do is take out your phone and text the word NEXT to 56316. My friends, here at Bayside, we really do love you. All you graduating seniors, we're loving you, praying for you. All of you that have sick loved ones, we are praying for you. All you medical professionals, let's stand together in this season. In fact, let's believe in the blessing of God. We're going to sing one more song here, and it's going to be a song that we're going to actually proclaim over each other's lives. An Easter song of blessing over you, your kids, and generations of your family to come. As Corbin re-leads us in worship, let's believe that our God is a God of blessing.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Oh yeah, we sing it now. Amen. 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 Amen.
May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you mountain, may His presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming and your going, in your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you. 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 He is for you.
Wow, friends, what an amazing Easter. And what an amazing message. A message that reminded us that the resurrection leads to rejoicing, that compassion becomes contagious, that barriers are broken, and ultimately forgiveness is found. And Lexi, we saw hands being raised across every single one of our campus platforms.
Yeah, that's right. And if that was you and you prayed that I raised my hand prayer at the end of that message, we know that the best is yet to come. And we want to say congratulations on making the best decision that we believe you're ever going to make.
Absolutely. And if that was you, would you let us know? You can click the button in the chat section that says, I raise my hand. It'll throw up a little emoji and everything. We just want to know it was you so that we can come alongside you in this journey. But you may be wondering, if you're watching on Apple TV, Roku, or YouTube, how do you let us know? No worries, friends. You can text NEXT to 56316. NEXT to 56316. Now, maybe your next step isn't that you follow Jesus for the first time today. Maybe it's getting involved in a compassion cause in our community. Maybe you need to submit a prayer request so our prayer team can be praying with you and alongside you. Or maybe it's just your first time here specifically at Bayside. You can also text NEXT to 56316 and just choose the drop-down option that applies to you.
Yeah, and for many of you guys, that next step is joining a small group. Here at Bayside, it's the best way for you to connect. You can get a crew and start doing life together. If that's you, then you can text the word group to 56316. And if you would like to host a group, then you can also text the word host to 56316.
Absolutely. And if you call Bayside Church home and you're wondering how you can continue giving through Bayside to the causes in our community, you can always text GIVE to 56316. Now lastly, we want to invite you back next weekend right here at Bayside Online as we continue our series, Defining Moments, Standing Strong in Shaken Times.
Yeah, you are not going to want to miss it. Again, from all of us here at Bayside, happy Easter. God bless you, and we will see you all soon.